You have one concern or another about my office. We all know that. We all know what's really going on here. Let me say this. I'm proposing that we have another LAMC meeting, and at that LAMC meeting, I will give you a long laundry list of my concerns. I won't be talking about the criminal investigation. I will talk about everything but the criminal investigation. And at that meeting, I will be proposing that we have a full audit, a full forensic audit on the Speaker's office, that is my office, one on the Clerk's office, and one on the Sergeant-at-Arms office. And you will get every detail of how much I spent. You want full disclosure. The public deserves full disclosure.
Yes.
Boy, are they going to get it. And I would say this, one more point I want to make to emphasize how important this is. I am completely confident that those audits will show that we have a lot of work to do here. And if the outcome of those audits did not outrage the public, did not outrage taxpayers, did not make them throw up, I will resign as Speaker. And Mr. Mullen will resign as well. This has gone on far enough. I've been reduced to a cartoon character. I would ask you and everyone else, is there any one single thing that Mr. Mullen has done wrong? I know it's going to happen at the end of this. People are going to be cheering for Mr. Mullen, and they're going to say, whatever you do here at the legislature, don't get rid of Mr. Mullen.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Politicoast. We're recording this on December 6, 2018, and this is episode 115. Politicoast is the BC Politics podcast. Tell us what you think of the show by leaving us a review or get at us on social media. Most importantly, help us build the show by throwing us a couple bucks a month at patreon.com/politicoast. I'm Ian Bushfield, and I'm flying solo tonight. The intro music, as always, is Beautiful British Columbia by Serge Plotnikov. On today's show, we have my interview with Bowinn Ma that I recorded last Friday. Politicoast is in partnership with BC Today, British Columbia's daily newsletter dedicated exclusively to BC politics. Sign up for a free trial to have unique coverage of the BC legislature delivered to your inbox every morning. Listeners to Politicoast enter the offer code CITIZEN for access to a special rate. For your free 2-week trial of the newsletter, go to britishcolumbiatoday.ca. Scott was away this past week, and so rather than try to put together a show this week, we're going to put up the interview I did with North Vancouver-Lonsdale MLA and Parliamentary Secretary for TransLink, Bowinn Ma. But before we do that, I just want to comment on today's wild news. The LAMC Legislative Affairs Management Committee met today to discuss what was going on with this ongoing Speaker/Clerk/Sergeant-at-Arms controversy. Things got tense. You heard a bit of Daryl Plekis' speech in the cold open there. We'll comment more on this next week as we see how things fall out. If you missed any of this controversy today, a great place to have caught it would have been on our Slack channel where we were chatting all day. So if you're not on there, patrons, get over there, message me and I'll send you a link. Or if you're not a patron yet, go to patreon.com/politicoast. We also want to get to the Premier's meeting, and we really want to cover the climate plan, and we want to try and do that thoroughly. So that'll be next week's show, and we're trying to line up an interview for the end of the month, after which we'll probably take a break for the holidays and then be back in 2019. Now let's throw it over to the Bowinn Ma interview. Well, Bowinn Ma, thanks for having me into your office to talk about politics.
Thank you for braving the crossing of the Burrard Inlet to get here.
It was a little rainy today, but it's sort of off when I came in and nice and dry now, so.
Great. Did you take the sea bus?
Yeah, I did.
Fantastic.
Always good to take TransLink.
It's the best way over, for sure.
Maybe we'll get into TransLink in a little bit, but first I kind of want to give people a sense of who you are and where you kind of came from. And I was looking at your bio on the Parliament or Legislature's website, and it said you're a UBC engineer, and we could talk about that, I'm sure, but I want to talk about the Bowinn Ma Award to start.
Oh, Oh, gosh. Okay, well, the Bowinn Ma Award was an award that the Engineering Undergraduate Society at UBC brought in 2008 in honor of my work as not just president, but in all my executive capacities for the Engineering Undergraduate Society. And as is the case with most student societies, because the executive changes over every year, the meaning of awards, I think, also kind of evolves over time. The last time they gave it out, I think I was there, actually. I was able to give that out. And they give it out now to a student who is... I don't remember the wording, to be honest, Ian. Like a student who has gone above and beyond in the purview of their work to the society, something like that. To be honest, I don't know if it's
still going.
Still going. It was at least awarded, I think, in 2017. I remember seeing it awarded, but.
Was that kind of a reflection of the attitude you had at UBC, was to go above and beyond in every little thing you could?
You know what? If you asked anybody, I think they would say yes. I definitely went pretty overboard, I think, on my commitment to the Engineering Undergraduate Society. It was my priority above everything else.
And you were involved very heavily in student politics, I get it, from everything I've read.
Yeah, again, through the Engineering Undergraduate Society. I mean, that's how I know folks like Pat Meehan and Matthew Naylor. We were all involved in the Alma Mater Society as well. But I did that work through my
From the
role.
engineering point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was involved at the Engineering Physics Club at the U of A and helped sort of keep that going for a couple years. And so I can relate to that kind of experience. What I did hear, though, about your time in student politics, which maybe contrasts with what you're up to these days, is that you were possibly a bit more conservative at the time.
Yeah, you know, this is one of the stories that I often tell. I mean, when I say story, it's true. It's one of the, I guess, the recaps
it's not the
of
myth
my...
of Bowinn.
That's right. When I was younger, I think that if somebody had talked to me about my political opinions, I would have come across as much more conservative than I do now. And there are a lot of reasons for this. A big part of it was just I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have a strong social background. I didn't understand poverty. I grew up in a household where anti-union sentiments were very common. In my extended family, they're still very common. And so just being quite, I led we weren't extremely wealthy, but I led a relatively privileged, safe life. And obviously, there were other challenges that I faced, but we were not in poverty. For instance. And my parents worked hard and believed very strongly that if you worked hard, you would be successful in life, and that was the end of it. Mm-hmm. So yes, I actually, when I ran for the NDP, one of my very old friends who knew me back in university, he made that comment. He said, I thought that you were a lot more conservative than this, actually. And again, it's been a very interesting transition, and I credit a lot of this transition to all of the people who were patient enough to actually talk me through a lot of the social issues that I did not understand when I was younger.
So it was a gradual process of listening and talking and thinking about these kind of questions that moved you politically.
You know what happened? I remember the exact date. It was January 30th, 2015. I read a Maclean's article on Bill C-51.
That bastion of leftism.
Exactly. It's not, right?
No,
yeah, exactly. It's a Maclean's article, and it was on Bill C-51, the anti-terrorism legislation that Stephen Harper brought in. And I remember thinking, wait, what? Like, this is crazy stuff. This is Canada, not the States. And it made me really want to know what the heck this bill was about. And I went and started reading everything I could get on it. And as I was reading through all this information, a lot of the lessons that my partner, who is still my partner today, had been trying to needle into my brain over the last few years started to make a lot of sense. He's a big fan of Noam Chomsky and listens to it all the time. And for years, I thought it was the most boring thing I'd ever heard. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't understand it. And all of a sudden, as I learned about Bill C-51, a lot of it started to make sense. And then I thought, my gosh, how did all of this get so bad all of a sudden? And of course, it didn't get so bad all of a sudden. It had been gradually getting worse, and I had not been paying attention. And with that also came a realization that brought a lot of shame, to be honest. Because what I realized was that a lot of the bad things that were happening to people around me who I cared about were happening because of policies that I allowed to become policies from just me not paying attention. Like, I had enabled a lot of the things that Stephen Harper and Christy Clark had done that now harm a lot of the people I care about because I wasn't paying attention.
Well, we'll get into policy in a second, but let's jump forward from student politics to you have this career as an engineer for a while, and a big thing I guess your career is famous for is your work at YVR on some of the expansion projects there. What did you learn there that you've sort of brought forward into politics?
Well, certainly I would say...
It's a big pivot from my last question. We'll tie everything together somehow.
No worries. So I worked as a project engineer for the Vancouver Airport Authority. I started there as a junior engineer, and by the time I was left, I was technically classified as an intermediate project engineer. But what we really did was we managed projects. So you'll see my bio say I managed capital infrastructure projects. It's because I wasn't really a technical designer or anything like that. And that was a great experience. YVR does some pretty cool projects, and I learned a lot about construction and that entire field, a lot about how the phasing of capital projects. I have a great appreciation for the complexity of construction. I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult the work that's being done in those major expansion projects actually are.
Right. They go 10-lane bridge is actually not that big of a deal, right?
It's like 10-lane bridge that you're trying to build while you're still getting cars over the inlet, and how do you phase that? I mean, at YVR, the projects were even more complex. We're talking about like building expansions of or rather demolishing parts of the building and then building expansions and tying all the infrastructure together without disrupting the airport's 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. Like, how do you tie in a 600 kilovolt line without shutting it down so that it doesn't impact the airport? It was very complex. So I have great appreciation for that. But it got to the point, though, when I was starting to really understand social issues, that a lot of the work I was doing there, while it was really cool, didn't seem to need me, right? They spend a lot of money out there. I'm talking a lot of money, and they do great work with it. But it got to the point where I couldn't feel good about myself just installing $50,000 doors anymore.
Right. And so that, I guess, takes it to you running for the NDP here in North Van. And one of the things that's interesting is looking at the history of the North Shore is it's never been a particularly fertile area for the New Democrats. There was David Schreck in 91 to 96. There was a New Democrat in 1972, but otherwise there are voters here who vote NDP, but they don't tend to ever come together enough to bring someone to the legislature. So what was it that made you say, you know what, I can do this in North Vancouver-Lonsdale in 2017?
I had a friend who was thinking of running in the provincial election, and he didn't end up running. But I remember him saying, I am willing to run in a hard riding, and I'm going to win because I will not be outworked. And that was very interesting for me, because there wasn't anything about me that made me think, I'm going to be an awesome MLA. Wow, I'm so special. I'm so much better than other people. I don't think that, and I still don't think that. But where I thought that I could add value was that I believed that if I was, and I was passionate about it, that I would not be outworked, and that I would do the work, the hard work that was necessary to bring North Vancouver-Lonsdale over the line. If I thought that there was another candidate who was better than me, who had a higher likelihood of actually winning in North Vancouver-Lonsdale, I likely would have stepped aside, because the point of me running wasn't to be a politician. It was to try to bring about the changes that I thought were needed, and I believed that the NP would do that.
So you get into office, you get into government, it turns out. But you're still from the North Shore, right? So you're representing this area, and the North Shore has such a unique identity that perhaps the rest of the province or even rest of Metro Van doesn't get. Is there something unique about representing the North Shore as opposed to just being another New Democrat in the legislature?
I think every MLA will say their riding is unique because it's true. Every riding will be unique. We all have different demographics. Our population cares about different things. We're faced with different challenges. Out here on the North Shore, it's interesting that, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting about the North Shore is that while housing is the number one most vocal urgent issue everywhere in Metro Vancouver, on the North Shore, the number one most vocal issue that you hear about all the time is transportation. Mm-hmm. Now, it actually leads into housing at the end of the day because a lot of our transportation problems are due to increased numbers of commuters. So people who work here can't afford to live here, and so they have to commute from Surrey, from Abbotsford, from Coquitlam. They're coming over in their cars, and they're adding a lot of volume onto the roads. So actually, housing affordability is the number one issue, but it's not the most loud issue. The loudest issue is transportation. So I thought that was just one of the very many things that are unique about North Vancouver. Yeah.
And do you find yourself in the legislature working with the other MLAs from the North Shore, even across party lines, like Jane Thornwade or Ralph Sultan?
So this has proven much more difficult than I originally anticipated. When I was first elected, I was very keen to be able to work across party lines on every issue that was possible. I extended a lot of olive branches, and in many cases, I kind of feel like I was hit over the head with them. So it is a little bit more challenging than I had hoped. But that being said, I continue to try. So, for instance, the Integrated North Shore Transportation Planning Project, the INSTEP report, or INSTEP, it's called INSTEP. When we were creating our report, we held many workshops that invited elected officials from across the region to participate. And certainly the BC Liberal MLAs were all invited. And for the most part, they all participated. I mean, availability issues obviously are always a challenge. The Select Standing Committee on Crown Corporations that did the Transportation Network Companies report was an all-party committee. So we had BC Liberals, BC Greens, BC NDP MLAs, and we were able to reach a consensus report, creative consensus report on that. And that was also something that I had led. I regularly try to acknowledge the good work of MLAs that are not NDP MLAs, because a lot of MLAs do good work. They make good statements in the House. They bring up important issues, and I want to be able to honor that. So that's
going to keep trying.
I will keep trying. Now, that does not mean that I will not hold people and parties to account. I don't think. I mean, I have a challenge with hyperpartisanship. I think that it's really damaging to our democracy, which is part of the reason why I'm really looking forward to pro-rep, fingers crossed. But hyperpartisanship is not the same as holding governments to account or holding parties to account for things that they have done or said or believe in. There is partisanship in that, but by hyperpartisanship, I mean like MLAs who oppose things purely because they don't like the party that you're in. That's hard for me to deal with, and it's unfortunate that it exists here in BC.
Have there been any, on that subject, any amendments that have come forward from the Green or Liberal caucus on any of the bills that have come forward that you've thought are valuable additions that you would consider voting for?
The Greens have brought forward amendments that we have supported. I believe that actually there's so many bills that go through the House, I can't keep track of all.
And it was a rush over the last couple weeks.
It really was. But I believe that the speculation tax actually also had an opposition amendment that was accepted. So there are opposition amendments that are accepted. Now, the caveat is that these amendments have to actually be properly drafted through legislative drafters. And a lot of bills and amendments that are brought forward by opposition parties aren't. They're there as talking pieces or as a flags to wave around. They're not actually written to be passed. And this isn't necessarily the fault of any particular party. Certainly the NDP did the same when they were in opposition as well. The difference, however, and I found this very, very interesting and very positive, is that David Eby, as Attorney General, made the conscious decision to provide access to legislative drafters to all parties, regardless of whether or not they were in government. And that has really, I think, really opens the door to true private member bills being drafted, ones that can be passed, that are properly considered, and also amendments that can be considered and passed.
Well, we've talked about the traffic concerns on the North Shore, and you've talked about INSTEP, the Integrated North Shore Transportation Planning Project. Great acronym.
That's why in step. We're all working in step together.
Oh. You were given the task of spearheading that project, and you're continuing on as chair. As a rookie MLA, was that a position you fought for? And did you have to make a case to take on such a relatively important file for the North Shore?
So, interestingly, I wasn't tasked to spearhead it. I just did.
Oh.
So what happened was, after my election, I set out to put this committee together. It's not really a committee, I guess it's a planning project, a working group. I knew what I wanted to do. Transportation challenges out here on the North Shore are exacerbated because there are so many different jurisdictions and agencies responsible for transportation. So planning can end up being quite, uncoordinated, unless people are being very deliberate about it. And this was this was something that I had gathered from my many, many conversations with elected officials and staff members in my months leading up to the election and in the months after the election. So it was about the fall when I started to draft a terms of reference and canvass opinions from the 3 mayors of the North Shore as to whether or not they would be interested in participating in a collaborative forum with me. And it took a few months of me talking with various mayors, talking with TransLink, and eventually I came up with the terms of reference that now exists today. When we had the terms of reference and mayors were all on board, TransLink was on board, I went to Minister Claire Trevena, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, and told her what it is that I wanted to do. She took a look at the plan. She said, you know what, this is a good idea, go for it. And I told her, well, you need to appoint somebody to be on this committee on behalf of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And she said, okay, it's going to be you. And that's basically how it happened.
Well, let's give the update on where INSTEP is, but I'm going to frame it very selfishly. How much sooner will I be able to not have to worry about traffic on Lionsgate Bridge when I return from Whistler?
Oh, gosh.
To go back to Vancouver or Burnaby?
Yeah. I mean, the hope was that INSTEP, through the work of INSTEP, we would somehow find a magic silver bullet that would solve all of the problems on the North Shore. And I suppose predictably, the answer came back that no, there's no silver bullet. There are many, many things that we have to do, and we've got to do them all at once. And one of the most important things that we have to do out here on the North Shore is better coordinate land use planning and transportation. Land use planning meaning we have to build complete communities where people can live close to where they work, and complete communities, of course, offer greater mobility options. So better transit routes, because you got greater density along high frequent transit networks, so you can justify more buses. Maybe you've got better walking, cycling infrastructure, so people feel safe getting out of their cars. You don't have to get into your car to go shopping for groceries. You've got one right downstairs, and hey, lucky you, you've got your workplace just a few blocks down. So those are very long-term, constant things that municipalities have to do. And a lot of it is, of course, in coordination with other levels of government, the provincial government, the federal government, and TransLink. So there's no easy answer to this, Ian, and I really am sorry that I can't give you an easy answer. But there are a lot of recommendations that came out of INSTEP, and many of them are already underway. So For instance, one of the recommendations is a regional bus between Metro Vancouver to Squamish. Well, if you're asking about how quickly you'll be able to get over the Lionsgate Bridge when you're coming back from Whistler, I suppose a big part of it depends on what mode you're using to travel, and hopefully we'll be able to get to a place where you've got many choices.
Are you facing any opposition from, because you're talking about radically, essentially expanding housing communities in the North Shore, some of these communities aren't known for being as open to that. Like West Vancouver is known for just really liking exactly how it is. Are you finding buy-in from these mayors? You talked about how they were on the committee.
Yeah. I mean, certainly one of the new challenges that we're facing here is that all three mayors who were on the committee are no longer mayors. They've all retired. So we've got a fresh slate. And the first meeting of the Integrated North Shore Transportation Planning Project Steering Committee is in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how that conversation goes.
Fair. I imagine while you had all these consultations and working group meetings with the public, people did throw out a lot of ideas. What was your favorite silver bullet solution that was offered, even if it's not feasible?
No
money.
Transporters.
Oh, yeah? Teleporters?
Teleporters.
Like Star Trek stuff?
Personal drones. We really went far and wide in this. We had the team, and by we, I actually mean the staff working group, because we had experts and staff, senior staff from all of these different municipalities do the data analysis and the numbers crunching. But the ideas that came through, there were over 270 of them, and it spanned the gamut. Yeah.
Lots of people pitching third crossings and things like that.
Lots and lots of third crossings. I think that the public certainly is still... The third crossing idea is, and I mean third crossing for vehicles.
Sure.
It's very attractive because it seems like it should be a silver bullet. But unfortunately, urban congestion doesn't behave the way that people might think that it does. Increased capacity often results in increased capacity results in increased vehicle usage, which leads to greater congestion. And our congestion challenges aren't just with the bridges, it's also with our local road networks that already can't handle the amount of volume that we're putting on it.
Well, I think that's a good place to pivot into some of your broader work on TransLink. And I see around the office the TransLink puzzle sitting out there, some of the posters. So any listeners who work there will be super happy that you're both a customer and a supporter.
Yes.
As you know, there's been a number of, and we talked about just now, the number of municipal elections around here with radical changes and challenges potentially to the 10-year plan. In Vancouver, we have a mayor and parts of council that are looking more for SkyTrain to UBC. Surrey has obviously ditched the LRT proposal and now wants to talk about SkyTrain. So who's going to be excited with the spring budget and who's going to be disappointed?
It's too early to tell. Certainly the mayor's council will have to discuss and decide amongst themselves how they want to proceed. I'm very cognizant of the fact that the original 10-year plan took many, many years and a lot of hard negotiations between the people around that table. And I want to be able to respect their decisions and their hard work. So if the 10-year plan that was put forward on the table that the province and the federal government committed funding to is no longer quite in the form that we thought it was, well, they're going to have to figure out what form it will take, and then we'll go from there.
Are there any bits that you're excited to see as possibilities within TransLink and the changes that could come?
Well,
without prejudging the mayor's council?
For sure. I mean, from a long-term perspective, the TransLink is currently updating their regional transportation strategy, which provides a 30-year outlook and guides the 10-year plans that the mayor councils will likely create. Now, the update might not directly impact the current 10-year plan because that's, in large part has already been set. But part of the work of InStep, one of the recommendations that came out of InStep was actually a rapid transit connection over the Burrard Inlet, or rather an alignment for one. So basically what it said was if you wanted to connect the North Shore to the mainland, if I can use that term, I guess, North Shore to the not North Shore.
The downtown peninsula.
Yes, thank you. With a rapid transit connection, the most promising alignment goes from downtown Vancouver to Lonsdale Quay.
Sort of where the C bus goes right now.
That's right. The C bus, if I understand correctly, doesn't quite move enough people quickly enough to be considered rapid transit, but it works very, very well, and it's very reliable. It's got something like a 99.8% reliability rate. So it's quite fantastic. But if you wanted to increase the amount of passengers that you got over the Burrard Inlet, that would be a really a good place to look. And that recommendation is now feeding into the regional transportation strategy that TransLink is doing. So they're going to be looking at that very seriously. And I think that's pretty cool.
Okay. Are there any challenges, though, that you see for TransLink in the short term? Places where maybe service isn't meeting people's expectations, or things that you just wish could solve themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we have, unfortunately, here in this province, stalled out on increases in transit service for a long time. Recognizing, of course, the BC Liberals, under the BC Liberals, the Canada Line had been brought in. Well, I hesitate to say the Evergreen. To be honest, in 2004, as a co-op student, I worked on the Evergreen project, and it just took way too long to build. But in terms of bus service, for instance, I'm pretty sure we didn't see an increase in bus service hours since something like 2009. The population has certainly grown since then. And even if we were to build out the entire 10-year mayor's plan right now, we would only be bringing up the service level to where it should be right now.
Right.
If we had grown transit capacity according to population. So obviously we're not going to be able to build out the entire 10-year plan in a moment's notice, which means that by the time we finish, we're already going to be behind compared to the per capita service levels that we were at in the early 2000s. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm really looking forward to getting this 10-year mayor's plan complete so that we can actually start getting on to even more improvements.
To always be 2 steps behind, always playing catch up, I imagine frustrating.
It is frustrating. I mean, similar to the housing crisis, right? I mean, we're doing a lot right now, but the reality is we are starting from very far behind.
Well, we've talked about North Shore Transit, we've talked about transit itself, but there are other ways people are getting around. And I know one person who responded to our call out for questions was very curious about the North Vancouver bike sharing program that's going on, and if you have thoughts on that.
You know what? I saw that tweet, and I know this person, Steve Tornes. He actually, again, just digging into my memory, pretty sure he's doing a master's on bike sharing programs, and the kind of, I guess, looking at it from a social perspective. And from what I understand, the 3 municipalities are now coming together on bringing bike share to North Vancouver. I don't know much more about it.
Okay. It's
Aside
more a
from
municipal thing than...
It is very municipal, but I think that it's a good idea, and I really look forward to seeing how it rolls out.
Has your office touched or looked at the Vancouver Mobi or the Victoria bike share at all, or is it more leaving it to the cities to deal with?
It's really a very municipal led initiative, so
Fair.
we'll see. We'll see how they roll it out, yeah.
Maybe in the future there could be a tie-in for all these different programs to work together a bit better and teach cities to learn from each other. But I guess that's what UBCM is for, rather than the parliamentary secretary for TransLink.
It's not quite my role there, but I would encourage it and be very supportive of greater cross-municipality coordination.
Well, one of the things I know that you do care passionately about that is provincial jurisdiction is childcare, and you've spoken a number of times about the province's move to $10 a day childcare. How is that project going? I know there's been a new pilot project launched.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Just looking back at the challenges that families faced in affording childcare not 1.5 years ago, and seeing how far we've come in such a short amount of time, it can, you can be careful now because it can bring me to tears. My my godchildren were born to a family of very low income. The mother, who was a good friend of mine in high school, was very young when she had her first kid. She was 18 years old, was pregnant when she was 17, and by the time she was 25, she had 4 kids. And now they've got mother, father, 4 children living in Burnaby with, last time I checked, a combined family income of $40,000. So there was absolutely no way that she would be able to afford childcare, which meant that she wasn't able to work. Today, childcare costs up to $2,000 per month per child. It is insane. Prior to the subsidies, prior to the fee reductions. So, this time last year, childcare costs up to $2,000 per child. It's more expensive than people's rent and mortgage, and is drastically adding to the unaffordability issue that so many families are struggling with. And so in the spring, Minister of State Katrina Chen rolled out a fee reduction program that was provider-based. So providers would opt in to contracts with government and be able to reduce their fees to the parents by up to $350 per month per child, which is huge. And then in the fall, she rolled out another program, a affordable childcare benefit that was income tested, which meant that if your family made less than $45,000 a year, you could receive up to $1,250 per month per child off of your childcare fees, and you were able to benefit as a family all the way up to overall family income of $111,000 per year. So it's actually quite a broad range. Now, it doesn't touch the whole range of family incomes for families that need help on childcare, which is why the ultimate goal for the childcare program is to become a universal childcare program here in BC. That's not income tested, but is funded through progressive income taxes. And so the third affordability program that was rolled out just a month ago, and that's it's a $200 per month childcare pilot project. One of the childcare providers here on the North Shore was selected as one of those pilot facilities, and what it meant was that for the families of 37 children, their fees went from maybe $1,600 per month per child down to $200 per month per child, basically overnight. I was fortunate enough to be able to be the one to share this news with some families a few weeks ago. And one of the mothers, she has 2 twin 4-year-old boys. And I told her this, and it took her a while to understand what it was that I was telling her. Like, she didn't really believe me. She thought she was being punked. Like, she was like, where's the candid cameras?
No one comes from the government to tell you get a bunch of money?
Like, that you're saving a whole whackload of money. And then when it hit her, what it was that I was actually trying to tell her, she was floored. And I mean literally floored. Like, she buried her head into her hands. She rolled off of the bench and she was on the floor with her 2 children looking over her, wondering what was going on. And she just could not believe it. She said she couldn't stop thinking about all of the opportunities and all of the opportunities that she can now provide her children that she just could not provide before.
Well, with the big budget surplus that Carol James just announced, are we expecting a faster rollout in the new year, or is it kind of still staged over the 10-year plan like it was initially announced?
Yeah, I mean, the budget surplus is good news for those people who needed to fight back against the narrative that the NDP are horrible at managing finances in the province. Now, I think the surplus was estimated to be $1.3 billion. I don't know whether or not there are other commitments that need to be dealt with that money. And it is important to note that budget surpluses it's one-time money that might not exist year to year. So expanding programs too quickly could leave us in a deficit position the year after. I know that certainly there are lots of ideas for even one-time funding, and that's work that the Ministry of Finance will have to analyze and assess and decide on.
And I'm sure we'll learn lots in the spring speech from the throne and the budget.
I think so, yeah.
Well, let's pivot to some lighter questions from the sort of passionate stories about childcare there. You're very big on social media, it seems. Does that come naturally to you, or is that something you've like learned and worked at, or do you have like secret minions behind here running your Twitter for you?
No, I do all of my own social media, for better or for worse. It takes a lot of time. Like, it is very, very time intensive. And I think sometimes I'll have people online being like, do you do anything but Twitter? It's like, yes. The answer is yes. I work a lot. I just work a lot of hours. Frankly, I just don't stop. And that's what it takes to be able to keep on top of being really active on social media and trying to engage where I can. Because if you notice, I try to respond to the best of my ability to comments and questions that are made in good faith anyway. That's not always the case in the interwebs. I did not take a single selfie until I started running for politics. I hated photos of myself. I've learned to accept that is something that I have to do as part of my new role as an MLA, that I have to take a lot of photos of myself and prove that I'm at places that I'm supposed to be at. But it was something that I had to force myself to do.
Right.
Social media as well. I forced myself to become more active on it. I used it very casually before, but now I obviously am very deliberate about it.
A lot of people have talked about how toxic social media is, particularly for women and people of color. As a woman of color, how have you kind of managed that balance between, like you're saying, engaging with people who are there to talk in good faith and the trolls?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty thin edge, I think, because I'm engaging to the best of my ability. Sometimes I feel like people take advantage of that and use opportunities to try to jam me, knowing that I do care about responding to people. I think it's sometimes unfortunate that I often think it's unfortunate that it happens, because it makes me not want to engage. And I will continue to, and I'll do my best, but it kind of helps me understand why not more politicians are more publicly engaging. Like, I do a lot of street outreach, for instance. During the summer, I am on the street literally with a tent and a table, and it's me and maybe a volunteer or a staff member to bring the services of the office out to the street. And it's a lot harder for people to be rude in person, but not that much harder.
Right.
And I think that I try to focus on the positive interactions that I've had. I try to focus on the reason why I became an MLA. I became an MLA to serve the public. And that does definitely include being willing to bear some pretty, personal, ugly attacks, being willing to bear the conversations that occur in bad faith, and also learning for my own, well, not just for my own benefit, but for the benefit of all people who are trying to engage me in good faith, it encourages me to be better at learning how to tell whether someone is trying to engage in bad faith or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's finish with maybe some just quick lightning round questions, just like 1 or 2 words. These aren't like hard ones.
Okay.
Team Otter or Team Koi?
Team Koi. I thought it was Team Otter, but then I read a op-ed by Vancouver-Lonsdale Ma, and it really made me reconsider my position.
Fair. John Horgan's dad jokes, endearing or cringeworthy?
I love John Horgan's dad jokes, and I got to tell you, he also makes them inside private caucus meetings. So it's not a persona. It's
him.
Yeah, this is him. He makes them all the time.
MMP, RUP, or DMP?
I went with MMP.
Okay. What's the best board game to get John Horgan for Christmas?
Oh, gosh.
He has Settlers.
He clearly likes Settlers of Catan. I have heard that Justin McElroy made a BC-based board game. I think that would probably be a good one to get John. I don't think it's in production right now.
Fair. I've heard you know what Num Tots and Elm Tots are?
Yes.
And would you describe yourself as one or both?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
These come from @Transit Geek Joe. When will we get to ride on a train with the Bowinn Ma call sign on it?
Oh, gosh. Probably a long time, but maybe I'll print him out a call sign on a piece of paper that we can carry around for a little
He
bit.
also wants to know when your autobiography is coming.
Oh, God. Thanks, Joe. Probably not for a while.
You got to write a lot more chapters. Of
Yes, I
life, right?
think so. I think it's a little early for me to be thinking about that.
Bowinn Ma, this was fantastic.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Where can people find you if they want to follow you on the internet or find out more about your politics?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not so much LinkedIn, but I am on it. And just search my name, Bowinn, last name Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's been Politicoast. If you're a first-time listener, make sure to subscribe and let us know what you think. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/Politicoast. And if you have ideas for the show, feel free to send them to us. Thanks for listening.